Hello everyone, and welcome to my YouTube channel, The English Globe. I hope you are all doing well and feeling great today. I'm really happy that you are here with us because today we have a very special episode that can help you improve not only your English, but also your life in a very powerful way. Whether you're listening at home, at work, or on the bus, this podcast is made just for you. My name is Adam, and I'm here with someone you know very well, my good friend and co-host, Julia. She's joining me today to talk about a topic that many people think about, but not everyone truly understands. Julia, how are you doing today?
Hi, Adam, and hello to all of our wonderful listeners. I'm doing really well today, thank you. I'm especially excited because this topic is so close to my heart. It's something that I think about a lot, not only when I'm working or studying, but also when I'm trying to reach my personal goals. Today, we're going to talk about something very important, something that can change the way you think about learning, success, and even how you live your everyday life. The title of today's episode is Discipline over Motivation, the secret to real success, and I truly believe that this message can help many people.
Yes, Julia, you are absolutely right. This topic is powerful, and it's something that many people don't talk about enough. You see, a lot of people believe that to be successful in life, or even just to learn something like English, you always need to feel excited, positive, and full of motivation. They think that when you're motivated, it's easy to get things done. You wake up early, go to the gym, read books, study new words, and feel like you can do anything. And sure, motivation feels great in the beginning.
That's very true, Adam. Motivation gives us energy, and in the beginning of something new, like starting a new job or beginning to learn English, that energy helps a lot. But the problem is, motivation doesn't last forever. One day, you feel full of energy and want to study English for hours, but the next day, you might feel tired, busy, stressed, or even lazy. Maybe you had a bad day at work, or maybe it's raining outside and you just want to stay in bed. That's when motivation disappears, and that's when you need something else to help you.
And that something else is what we call discipline. Discipline means doing the right thing, even when you don't feel like doing it. It means showing up, doing the work, and staying on track, especially on the days when it's hard. Discipline is stronger than motivation because it doesn't depend on your feelings. It depends on your commitment, your habits, and your purpose.
Yes. And today, we are going to explain exactly what motivation is, what discipline is, and why one is more powerful than the other. We'll also talk about how you can build discipline in your own life, step by step, in simple ways. We'll give you examples from real life, and we'll connect everything to English learning so you can use these ideas in your daily routine.
So if you ever feel like giving up, or if you've started learning English many times but stopped after a few weeks, then this episode is definitely for you. We're going to help you understand why that happens, and more importantly, what you can do to finally stick to your goals and keep improving, even when motivation is gone.
And don't worry if you are just starting to learn English. We promise to speak slowly, use simple and clear words, and explain everything in a way that is easy to understand. This episode is made for beginners, so you can enjoy learning while you listen and improve your English at the same time.
That's right. So get ready, my friends. Grab a notebook if you like, or just relax and listen. This is going to be a long, helpful, and inspiring episode that will give you tools for English learning and for life. Are you ready, Julia?
I'm ready, Adam. Let's begin this journey together and discover why discipline is the real secret to success.
All right, so let's begin this part of the conversation by asking a very important question that many people talk about but sometimes don't fully understand. What is motivation? You see, the word motivation is used all the time. You can hear it in YouTube videos, see it on posters, or read it in books about success and personal growth. People say things like, stay motivated, never lose your motivation, or motivation is the key to success. But what does motivation really mean in our daily lives? What does it feel like? And how does it work when we are trying to learn something or reach a goal?
That's such a good question, Adam, and I think it's important to explain it in a simple way. Motivation is a strong feeling inside you that makes you want to do something. It's like a push or a spark that gets you moving. For example, imagine you see a video of someone running in the early morning looking healthy and strong, and suddenly you feel like going for a run too. That feeling you get right after watching the video, that excitement, that energy, that voice in your head saying, "Yes, I want to do that," that's motivation. It's the same when you start something new, like learning English. In the beginning, you feel excited, you buy a notebook, download an app, watch videos, and tell yourself, "I'm going to do this." That excitement, that first wave of energy, that's also motivation.
Exactly, Julia. Motivation is like that fresh feeling you get when you're starting something new or when you're inspired by someone or something. It gives you a lot of energy in the beginning, and it feels really good. It feels like you're ready to take action, like you want to move forward. It's the reason why so many people join the gym in January or start learning a new skill after watching an inspiring movie or reading a powerful story. Motivation comes from inside, and sometimes it also comes from outside, like from other people, videos, music, or quotes. But even though motivation feels strong, there's something we need to understand about it. It doesn't last forever.
Yes, and that's where things start to get difficult. You see, motivation is like a wave in the ocean. It rises high and makes you feel powerful, but after a while that wave goes down. One day you wake up feeling strong and excited, ready to study English for 1 hour. But the next day maybe you feel tired, or something stressful happens, or the weather is cold, and suddenly the feeling of motivation is gone. You don't feel that same excitement anymore. You start thinking, "Maybe I'll study later," or "I don't feel like it today." And slowly, that big wave of motivation disappears, and you stop doing the thing you started. That's what happens to many people. They start strong, but they stop after a few days or weeks because the motivation is no longer there.
That's so true, Julia, and I think a lot of our listeners can relate to that. Maybe some of you listening right now have experienced this before. Maybe you started learning English a few months ago, and in the beginning, you were full of energy. You watched videos, you practiced speaking, you listened to podcasts just like this one. But then, one day, you felt tired. Another day, you were busy. Then you missed one day of study, then another day, and then you stopped completely. And you thought, "What happened to me? Why did I stop?" The answer is simple. You were depending only on motivation. And when the feeling of motivation disappeared, your action disappeared too.
Yes, that happens to so many people. And it's not because they are lazy or not smart. It's because motivation is a feeling, and feelings are always changing. Sometimes we feel happy, sometimes we feel sad. Sometimes we are full of energy, and sometimes we just want to sleep. So if we only do things when we feel motivated, we will only take action on the good days. And the truth is, if we want to succeed, especially in something like learning English, we need to take action on the bad days too. That's why we need something stronger than motivation. We need something that stays with us, even when we don't feel excited or powerful. And that thing, my friends, is discipline.
Exactly, Julia. So, in the next part of our podcast, we're going to talk about what discipline really means and how it is different from motivation. We'll also explain how discipline can help you keep going, even when you don't feel like it. Because if you can understand that, and if you can start building discipline in your life, you'll be able to reach your goals, no matter what happens, no matter how you feel.
So stay with us, because what comes next might just change the way you think about success, learning, and your own future. Let's keep going.
Now that we have a clear understanding of what motivation is and why it often disappears after a short time, it's time for us to talk about something that is even more important, more powerful, and more reliable than motivation. This is the real key to long-term success, and it's something that many successful people in the world talk about again and again. This important quality is called discipline. So, let's start by answering the question, what is discipline, and how is it different from motivation?
That's a great place to begin, Adam. So let's explain it in the simplest way possible. Discipline means doing what you need to do, even when you don't feel like doing it. It means staying committed to your goals, even when it's hard, even when you are tired, bored, or not in the mood. It's not about how you feel. It's about what you do. Discipline is the action you take again and again, no matter what your emotions are in the moment. While motivation is like a fire that burns bright for a short time, discipline is like a quiet engine that keeps running every single day without stopping.
That's a perfect explanation, Julia. Let's give an example to make this even easier to understand. Imagine you decide to start learning English. At first, you feel very motivated, so you study for 1 or 2 hours every day for the first week. You watch videos, you take notes, and you practice speaking. But then, after a few days, that motivation starts to go down. Maybe you feel tired from work, or you have a busy day, or you just don't feel like studying. If you only depend on motivation, you will probably stop studying at that point. But if you have discipline, you will still sit down, open your book or your app, and study, even if it's just for 10 or 15 minutes. You might feel tired, but you will do it anyway, because you made a decision to stay consistent.
Yes, exactly. That's the power of discipline. It helps you continue your journey, even when you don't have strong feelings pushing you forward. Another example is going to the gym. Some people go to the gym only when they feel motivated, but people with discipline go to the gym even when it's raining, even when they had a long day, and even when they would rather stay at home and watch TV. They go because they have built a habit. They understand that small actions every day, even when they're not perfect, are much better than big actions once in a while.
And that's why discipline is so reliable. It's something you can trust. Motivation is not always there. It comes and goes. But discipline becomes part of your character. It becomes a habit that is connected to your goals. When you're disciplined, you don't wait to feel good before you take action. You take action first, and sometimes the good feeling comes after. That's a very important thing to remember. You don't need to feel good to do the right thing. You can feel tired, you can feel lazy, you can feel bored, and still study English, still go for a walk, still read a book, still make progress.
Yes, and here's something that might surprise many people. The more you practice discipline, the easier it becomes over time. In the beginning, it's hard to study every day. It's hard to wake up early. It's hard to do things that feel uncomfortable. But the more you do it, the stronger your self-control becomes. You start to feel proud of yourself. You begin to believe in yourself. And little by little, your small actions turn into powerful habits. That's when real change begins to happen. Discipline gives you freedom because it helps you take control of your time and your choices.
And when you have discipline, you don't need to rely on feelings anymore. You don't need motivation to carry you because you already have the tools to keep going, no matter what. That's why people who succeed in learning languages, starting businesses, or becoming healthier are not the people who always feel excited. They are the people who do the work, quietly and consistently, even on the days when no one is watching and no one is clapping for them. They show up for themselves again and again.
So, if you're listening right now and you sometimes feel like giving up on your English learning, I want you to know something important. You don't need to be perfect. You don't need to study for hours every day. But you do need discipline. Even if you just study for 10 minutes a day, every day, that's more powerful than studying for 2 hours one time and then stopping for a week. Discipline is not about doing everything. It's about doing something. Small, regular actions that move you closer to your goal.
And in the next part of this podcast, we're going to show you exactly how you can build discipline in your life, step by step, in simple ways that anyone can follow. Whether you're a student, a worker, or a busy parent, you can create a life where discipline becomes your superpower. So stay with us, because what's coming next is the most practical part of today's episode, and it could help you take your English learning to the next level.
Yes, it's time to move from understanding to action. We'll give you real tips, simple steps, and examples that you can start using today. Let's keep going.
All right, so now that we've had the chance to really break down both motivation and discipline individually, let's dive deeper into the key question. What is the real difference between these two ideas? Understanding the difference is crucial, especially because many people often confuse the two or believe they're the same thing. If you don't fully understand this difference, it's easy to feel frustrated or confused with yourself when you lose your motivation or when things get difficult. You might think, why don't I feel motivated today? Or, why can't I keep going like I did last week? But the truth is, motivation and discipline are two separate forces, and recognizing the difference can change the way you approach your goals. So, let's take a moment to explore and understand how motivation and discipline are different from each other.
That's a great point, Adam. So let me start by explaining it in simple terms. Motivation is all about how you feel in the moment. It's like a rush of excitement or energy that suddenly comes to you and pushes you to take action. For example, when you see a motivational video or read an inspiring story, you might feel energized and ready to work on your goals right away. This feeling of excitement is temporary. It's strong, but it doesn't last forever. Motivation can come quickly. It's like a wave that lifts you up for a while, but eventually that wave goes down, and you're left without that same feeling. It's kind of like waking up on a Monday morning, feeling ready to start a new project, only to feel tired and less excited by Tuesday. On the other hand, discipline is different. Discipline is not about how you feel. It's about what you do, no matter what emotions you're experiencing. Discipline means you keep going even when you don't feel like it. It's the ability to continue working towards your goals even when you feel tired, when you're busy, or when you're simply not in the mood to do it.
Exactly, Julia. To help explain this difference more clearly, let's consider a real-life example that many of us can relate to. Imagine there is a student named Ali who wants to learn English. In the beginning, Ali feels very excited. He watches a motivational video about the benefits of speaking English fluently, and it sparks a strong feeling inside him. He feels like he can do anything, and because of this, he decides to study English for 2 full hours that day. He feels great because his motivation is high. This is what we call motivation. He is feeling inspired and it leads to action. But the very next day, Ali wakes up feeling tired. He stayed up late the night before, he has a lot of homework, and when he thinks about studying English, he doesn't feel that same excitement anymore. He feels too tired, and he doesn't want to open his book. If Ali waits for motivation to come back, he might skip studying that day, thinking, I'll study when I feel motivated again. And this is where discipline comes into play. Because, you see, discipline doesn't depend on motivation. Discipline means that even when Ali feels tired, even when he doesn't want to study, he still decides to study for 15 or 20 minutes. He doesn't have to feel excited. He just does it, because he knows it's important to stay consistent and keep going, even when motivation is not there.
Yes, and that's exactly the difference between the two. Motivation is like a light that shines brightly for a while but fades away, while discipline is like a strong foundation that keeps you steady, no matter what. Let's consider another example. Imagine a person who wants to get healthier and start exercising. At first, they might feel motivated after seeing a fitness influencer post a workout video on social media. They might say to themselves, I'm going to work out every day this week. But after a few days, maybe they start feeling sore or tired, or maybe something else in life comes up that gets in the way of their workouts. If they only depend on motivation, they might stop working out once their motivation fades. But if they have discipline, they will still find the time to exercise, even if it's only for 10 minutes. Discipline helps them keep going, even when the excitement has disappeared. It's the regular actions, doing something small every day, that add up over time and lead to real progress.
Exactly, Julia. And when we look at this difference, it's important to understand that discipline is much more reliable than motivation. Motivation can be unpredictable. Some days you feel full of energy, ready to work hard. Other days, you might feel lazy or distracted. But discipline is consistent. It's about creating small, daily habits that keep you moving forward, even on the days when motivation is not there to push you. And I think this is something a lot of people miss when they are working towards goals. They expect to feel motivated all the time, and when they don't, they give up. But if you build discipline, you won't need to rely on motivation anymore. You'll be able to take action, day after day, whether you feel excited or not. And that's how you make real progress in anything, including learning English, working out, or even developing your career.
I totally agree, Adam. And to make this even more personal, I can share a story from my own life. When I first started learning how to cook, I was motivated because I saw so many beautiful food pictures on social media, and I wanted to make those dishes. I spent a whole afternoon making an elaborate recipe, and it was amazing. But then, a week later, I didn't feel like cooking anymore. I didn't have the same excitement, and I was too busy with work. But what kept me cooking was discipline. Even when I didn't feel like it, I set a goal to cook one simple meal every weekend. It wasn't always a complicated dish. Sometimes it was just pasta or a salad. But I kept cooking because I had discipline. I didn't wait for motivation to come back. I just did it. And over time, I got better and more confident in the kitchen. That's the power of discipline. It keeps you going even when your feelings are not on your side.
That's a great story, Julia, and I think our listeners can really understand that feeling. You might not feel excited every day, but that's okay. Discipline is about pushing through those days and doing what you know is right, no matter how you feel. So, for anyone listening right now, remember this. Motivation is powerful, but it's not something you can rely on all the time. If you want to see real success and progress in learning English or in anything else, you need discipline. Discipline will help you show up for your goals day after day, even when motivation has left the building.
Exactly. And now, as we continue with this episode, we'll share some practical steps you can take to build discipline in your life. So, stay tuned, because these tips will help you create the daily habits that will lead to long-term success, no matter what challenges come your way.
That's right. So, let's move on to the next part and talk about how to start building discipline, step by step, in simple, realistic ways. All right, now that we've talked a lot about motivation and discipline, we're going to dive into something very important. Why motivation often fails. This is a crucial part of our conversation today because many people experience this struggle. You might start a new project, feel excited and full of energy, only to lose that motivation a few days or weeks later. You might have tried to learn English or stick to a fitness plan, but eventually, something happens, and your motivation disappears. So, let's talk about it. Why does motivation fail? Why does it leave us when we need it most?
That's a great question, Adam. Motivation can feel amazing when it's there. It's that burst of energy that pushes us to do things we didn't think we could do. But the problem with motivation is that it's not something we can control all the time. It's based on how we feel, and our feelings are not always stable. Sometimes we feel very motivated, but other times we feel tired, lazy, or just not in the mood to do anything. And this is where the problem begins. If we only rely on motivation, we are depending on something that can disappear very quickly.
Exactly, Julia. Let's think about some examples. Have you ever had one of those days where you wake up feeling tired, or maybe the weather is bad and you just don't feel like doing anything? Maybe it's raining outside and you don't want to leave the house, so you skip your workout, or you skip your English practice. Maybe you're feeling a little down or your mood isn't great, so you tell yourself, I'll just do it tomorrow. But tomorrow comes, and you still don't feel like it. And the cycle continues. This is something that happens to everyone. Motivation can fail, especially when life gets in the way.
Yes, those lazy days are so common. And it's not just about bad weather or being tired. Life gets busy too. Sometimes we have so many things to do that we don't have enough time or energy for the things we really want to do. You know, work, school, family, and other responsibilities can take up all of our time. On these days, motivation isn't enough to make us push through. It's like we have a mountain of things in front of us and we feel too exhausted or stressed to do anything extra. So we tell ourselves, I'll do it later. But later never comes. When motivation is the only thing we rely on, this can be a real problem.
Exactly. And that's the thing. Motivation is based on feelings, and feelings change all the time. Some days we feel great, ready to take on the world. But other days, we just don't have that same energy. Maybe we're not in a good mood, or something happens that makes us feel stressed or upset. On these days, relying only on motivation will not help. If you wait for motivation to appear on the days when you're not feeling it, you'll probably end up doing nothing. And that's why motivation alone is not strong enough to get things done in the long term.
That's so true, Adam. Motivation can be there one moment and then it's gone the next. But what happens when it's gone? You might find yourself making excuses or feeling guilty for not doing anything. This is when people start to lose progress. They begin to believe that they can't achieve their goals because they don't feel motivated enough. They might think, I'm not working hard enough, or I must not be disciplined enough. But the truth is, they just haven't built the habits that are needed to push through those tough days. Discipline is what will keep them moving forward, even when motivation fails. Without discipline, motivation will always be a temporary boost. But discipline keeps you going even when that boost disappears.
Absolutely. And this brings us to a really important point. Relying on feelings to decide whether you will take action or not is not a good strategy. Feelings can change every minute, and they often don't align with what we need to do. For example, you might feel like watching TV instead of studying English. Or you might feel like sleeping longer instead of waking up early to exercise. If you wait for motivation to feel right before taking action, you'll find that your progress is slow and inconsistent. You might start something, but then give up when you don't feel motivated anymore. Discipline, on the other hand, is much more reliable. It's not about how you feel. It's about what you decide to do even when you're not in the mood.
Yes, and here's the thing. When you don't rely on motivation and instead build a disciplined routine, you don't need to wait for the right feeling to take action. You just do it because it's part of your daily habits. Even when the weather is bad, even when you're tired, even when you're in a bad mood, you keep going because discipline has become a habit. The more you practice discipline, the easier it becomes. Over time, you don't have to think about it anymore. It just becomes part of your lifestyle.
Exactly. And another thing is that motivation often fades because it's too dependent on external factors, like how we feel, the people around us, or even things like the weather. But discipline is internal. It's about making a decision for yourself, and once you make that decision, you stick with it. Let's say you wake up feeling down, and you have no motivation to study. But if you've already made it a habit to study English for 15 minutes every morning, you just do it, no matter how you feel. Your discipline becomes more powerful than your motivation, and that's when real progress happens.
Exactly, Adam. And let me tell you something that many people don't realize. Motivation is not something we can control. It's not like we can just decide to feel motivated whenever we want. Motivation often comes when we least expect it, but it also leaves just as quickly. If you want to get better at something, you need to stop waiting for motivation and start relying on your own strength. You have the power to build habits and routines that don't depend on motivation to be successful. Once you build those routines, you will see that progress doesn't require motivation. It just requires consistency and the decision to keep going.
So, in the end, motivation is helpful when it's there, but it's not something you can depend on every day. Motivation might help you get started, but it's discipline that will help you finish. The more you rely on discipline, the less you'll need to worry about motivation. You'll stop waiting for that perfect feeling to take action. Instead, you'll take action first, and then motivation will come later, sometimes.
Exactly. And I hope today's discussion has shown everyone listening just how powerful discipline can be, especially when motivation is nowhere to be found. You don't need to rely on feelings to achieve your goals. Discipline is the key to staying consistent, no matter what life throws at you. And once you learn how to build discipline, you'll find that success comes much more easily and steadily.
So, if you've been struggling with motivation, don't worry. We've got more to talk about in the next section. We'll share some practical tips on how you can build discipline in your life, step by step. And once you start building discipline, you'll see that motivation becomes less important, and your progress will become much more predictable.
That's right. Stay with us, and let's move on to the next part of the episode, where we'll show you how to create lasting habits that will make discipline a natural part of your life.
All right, friends, now that we've had a deep and honest talk about how motivation often disappears when we need it the most, on rainy days, on tired mornings, or when life just gets too busy, it's time to talk about something that's even more important and powerful, something that actually helps people succeed in school, at work, in sports, and even in learning English, and that something is called discipline, which is like a quiet engine that keeps going, even when everything else seems to slow down or stop.
Exactly, Adam. And the amazing thing about discipline is that it doesn't depend on your mood. It doesn't ask you if you feel excited or ready, and it doesn't wait for a perfect situation. It simply becomes part of who you are through your daily habits, routines, and small consistent actions, even if those actions feel boring or difficult in the beginning. Because once they become part of your regular life, they start working like magic behind the scenes, helping you grow and improve in ways you don't even notice at first.
That's so well said, Julia. And if we think about it, every successful person we admire, whether it's a famous athlete who trains every morning before the sun rises, or a student who studies a little bit of English every single day no matter how busy they are, or even a hardworking employee who shows up on time, does their job with focus, and keeps learning new things slowly over time. These people are not depending on motivation to guide them. Instead, they have built strong routines that run almost like clockwork, and those routines are the result of discipline.
Right. And here's something very interesting. When you build a strong routine, like studying English for 20 minutes every morning before breakfast, or listening to an English podcast during your walk, your brain starts to accept that routine as part of your day, just like brushing your teeth or making your bed. And after a few weeks or months of doing the same thing again and again, you no longer need to argue with yourself or wait to feel motivated because it has already become automatic. And that's exactly how discipline works. It gives you structure and stability, even when your emotions are changing all the time.
And here's the powerful truth, especially for anyone out there who's struggling with staying on track. Discipline is what shows up when motivation stays in bed. It's what helps you open your English notebook even when you're sleepy or not in the mood. And it's what pushes you to practice speaking out loud, even when you're nervous or afraid of making mistakes. Because discipline isn't about how you feel. It's about what you've decided to do. And once you make that decision and stick to it, you don't have to rely on the ups and downs of motivation anymore.
Yes, and I want to give a simple but powerful example from my own life. When I was learning Spanish, I used to wait for motivation to study, and it worked for a while, but only for a few weeks, because after that, I would start skipping days, telling myself that I was too tired, or that I would study tomorrow. But when I finally decided to create a study routine, where I listened to Spanish podcasts every evening while cooking dinner, it completely changed everything, because I no longer had to find time. The time was already part of my day, and that's the beauty of discipline. It fits into your life in a natural way and helps you make progress without stress.
That's a great example, Julia, and I can share something similar too. When I was training for a long-distance race, I didn't always want to run, especially early in the morning when it was cold outside, and my body was sore from the day before. But I had made a promise to myself that I would run 3 times a week no matter what. And even though it was hard at first, after a few weeks, I stopped thinking about whether I wanted to do it or not. I just did it. and that habit made me stronger. Not only physically, but mentally too. Because discipline teaches your mind that you can trust yourself to do difficult things.
Exactly. And one of the most beautiful things about discipline is that it supports you on your worst days, not just your best ones. Because anyone can study or work hard when they're feeling great, when the sun is shining and everything is going well. But the real test is whether you can keep going on the days when you're tired, when you feel lazy, or when things are not going your way. And that's when discipline becomes your secret strength, the thing that carries you forward, while motivation takes a break.
So if you're someone who wants to improve your English, but you find yourself starting and stopping over and over again, don't feel bad, because you're not alone. And the problem is not that you're lazy or weak. It's simply that you've been depending on motivation for too long. When what you really need is a system, a routine, a plan that helps you show up every day, even just for a few minutes. And that's what discipline gives you. It gives you the ability to keep moving forward, step by step, even when everything else tells you to quit.
Yes. And just imagine how powerful that can be in your life. If you build a small habit today, like listening to this podcast every evening or writing 3 new English words in your notebook every morning, and you do that every single day, your English will improve so much faster than someone who studies for 3 hours one day and then takes a long break. Because progress is not about doing big things once. It's about doing small things over and over again with discipline. And before you know it, you'll look back and realize just how far you've come.
That's absolutely true, Julia. And if you're listening right now and wondering where to begin, don't worry. We're going to help you in the next part of our episode by sharing practical, simple steps you can take to start building discipline in your daily life, especially as an English learner, because we believe that with the right habits, anyone can succeed, no matter their level, their age, or their schedule.
So stay with us, everyone, because in the next section, we're going to talk about how to build discipline step by step and how to create easy routines that will help you stay on track, even on the days when motivation is gone. Let's keep going.
All right, everyone. Now that we've explained why discipline is so important and why it's much more powerful than motivation, let's move into the part that many of you have been waiting for. How you can actually build discipline step by step, even if you've never been very consistent before. Even if you feel like you always give up quickly, or even if your life feels too busy or too messy to follow any kind of routine right now. The truth is, discipline is not something you're born with. It's something you create, and the best part is, anyone can do it. Even if you start small, you can grow stronger and more consistent every single day.
Exactly. And I want to begin with something really important. Something that helped me a lot when I started learning languages and working on personal goals. And that is, start small. So small that it's almost too easy. If you want to create a new habit or build discipline in your life, especially when it comes to studying English, don't try to do everything at once. For example, don't tell yourself, I will study for 2 hours every day if you're not used to studying at all. Instead, tell yourself, I will study for 5 minutes every day after breakfast, and just do that. 5 minutes, no more, no less. But do it every single day until it becomes a part of your life.
That's such great advice, Julia, because one of the biggest mistakes people make when they try to be more disciplined is that they set goals that are way too big, way too fast, and when they miss a day or feel tired or make a small mistake, they feel like they've failed, and then they stop completely. But if you start with a habit that's so small, you can't say no to it, like listening to 1 English song a day or reading 1 short paragraph in English every morning, then it becomes easier to stay consistent. And once you're consistent, you can slowly increase the time and difficulty later.
Yes. And once you've started with something small, the next step is to choose a specific time and place for your habit. Because discipline becomes stronger when your brain knows exactly when and where it needs to do something. For example, if you decide that you will write 5 new English words every night at 9 p.m. at your desk, and you do that again and again, your brain will begin to recognize that time and place as English practice time. and that makes it easier to follow through, even when you're not feeling motivated.
Right, and here's another simple but powerful tip. Don't wait for motivation. Just follow the schedule. Many people say, I'll do it when I feel ready, or I'll study when I'm in the mood. But if you wait for the perfect moment, you might wait forever. Instead, think of your new habit like brushing your teeth. You don't ask yourself every day, do I feel like brushing my teeth today? You just do it, because it's part of your daily routine. In the same way, if you treat your English practice like something you do no matter what, you'll build real discipline over time.
Absolutely, and another way to make discipline easier is to connect your new habit with something you already do, which is called habit stacking. For example, if you already drink tea or coffee every morning, you can say, right after I make my tea, I will open my English notebook and review 5 words. Or, after I brush my teeth at night, I'll listen to 5 minutes of an English podcast. This connection makes it easier for your brain to remember and repeat the habit, because it's tied to something familiar.
That's a fantastic technique, Julia, and it really works, especially for people with busy schedules. Now here's something else that's very helpful. Track your progress. You don't have to do anything complicated. Just use a calendar, a notebook, or even a small checklist. And every day that you complete your English practice, put a small check mark or an X on the calendar. Seeing those marks grow every day gives your brain a reward, and it makes you want to keep the streak going, even when you're tired or busy.
Yes. And it feels really satisfying to look at a page full of check marks and know that you didn't give up, even when things were difficult. And if you miss a day, don't worry. Don't feel guilty. Just get back on track the next day. The goal is not to be perfect. The goal is to be consistent, and that means showing up again and again, even after you fall off. Remember, discipline is not about never making mistakes. It's about continuing to move forward, one step at a time.
Exactly. And here's one last tip for building strong discipline. Remind yourself why you're doing this. Write down your reasons somewhere you can see it. Maybe it's, I want to speak English confidently, or I want to pass the Ielts exam, or I want to travel and talk to people around the world. Whatever your reason is, keep it close, because on the hard days, that reason can give you the extra push to keep going, even when you don't feel like it.
That's so true. And we want everyone listening right now to know that building discipline is not about being perfect or working super hard all the time. It's about creating small habits, doing them regularly, and being kind to yourself as you grow. You don't need to study English for 3 hours a day to see progress. You just need to study for a few minutes every day and do it again tomorrow and the next day and the day after that.
Yes, and trust us, if you follow these simple steps, start small, pick a time and place, connect your habit to something else, track your progress, and remember your why, then in a few weeks, you'll look back and realize that you've become someone who is truly disciplined, someone who doesn't quit, someone who makes steady progress toward their goals, and that's what real success looks like.
So, stay with us, because in the final part of today's episode, we're going to wrap everything up with a summary of what we've learned. And we'll give you a final message to help you stay strong, stay focused, and most importantly, stay disciplined as you move forward in your English learning journey.
So true, Julia. And to everyone listening right now, we want to remind you that staying disciplined doesn't mean being perfect every single day or doing everything exactly the way you planned without any mistakes. In fact, the truth is that discipline is not about never falling down, but about always getting back up, again and again, especially when things are hard, when you're tired, or when everything around you seems to be pulling your attention away from your goals.
And sometimes, one of the most powerful things you can do to keep your discipline strong over a long period of time is to take a few minutes each week or each month to reflect on how far you've come. Because when you look back and see all the days you showed up, all the words you learned, all the times you didn't give up, you begin to realize that your small daily actions are actually building something much bigger than you can see in the moment. And that gives you the strength to keep going forward, even if the results aren't fast or obvious.
That's such a great point. And I really believe that when we connect our daily habits to a bigger purpose, when we remind ourselves why we started this journey in the first place, it becomes easier to stay committed. Because we're no longer just doing something because we feel like it today, but because it's part of the person we want to become. Whether that's someone who can speak English confidently, travel to new countries, pass an important exam, or just express themselves clearly in a global world.
And remember, the road to success is not a straight line. It's full of ups and downs, fast days and slow days. And that's completely normal, which is why it's so important to have compassion for yourself, to understand that discipline is not about pushing yourself so hard that you feel burned out or unhappy, but about gently guiding yourself back to your routine again and again, with patience, with kindness, and with the belief that even a small effort, repeated many times, can lead to incredible transformation over time.
Exactly. And I want to say this very clearly for everyone listening. You don't need to be perfect. You just need to be persistent. You don't need to study for hours every single day. You just need to show up consistently, even if it's for 5 minutes, because it's not the size of your action that matters most. It's the habit of taking action that builds discipline. And discipline is what carries you forward on the days when motivation disappears, when life is stressful, or when you just don't feel like doing anything at all.
And if you ever feel like giving up, just remember this. You've already come so far. You've already taken the first steps by listening to this podcast, by thinking about discipline, by wanting to improve yourself, and that alone makes you different from many people who never even try. So be proud of yourself, stay focused on your path, and trust that if you keep going, one day at a time, even with small steps, your future self will thank you for not giving up when things got hard.
That's beautiful, Julia. And I hope everyone listening right now feels inspired to keep practicing, keep learning, and keep showing up for themselves. Because discipline is not something you need to chase, it's something you create, moment by moment, choice by choice. And the more you practice it, the more natural and powerful it becomes in every part of your life. Now let's talk about something that's very important but often misunderstood when people begin their journey with self-improvement or learning a new skill, like English, or anything else that requires time and dedication. And that's the idea that discipline is always hard, cold, boring, or even unpleasant. But I want to tell you that this is not true at all. Because when discipline is built in the right way, with care and thought and small positive changes, it can actually become one of the most peaceful, enjoyable, and reliable parts of your life. Something that helps you feel safe and steady, even when everything around you feels uncertain or chaotic. Because discipline is not about being perfect. It's about being consistent, about showing up for yourself in small ways every day.
Yes, Adam. And I completely agree with you, because I know that many of our listeners, especially those who are just beginning to learn English or just starting to develop good habits in life, often feel overwhelmed by the word discipline, as if it means strict control or punishment. But the truth is that discipline is not about being hard on yourself or forcing yourself to do things you hate. Instead, it's about gently guiding yourself in the direction of your goals and doing small things every day, even when you don't feel like it. So that over time, these small steps become habits, and these habits create real change, not through pressure or pain, but through patience, structure, and self-love.
Exactly. And one of the biggest mistakes people make when they try to become more disciplined is that they think they have to change everything at once. They believe they need to wake up early, exercise, study for hours, eat perfectly, and stay positive all day long. But the truth is that real, lasting discipline is built slowly, one piece at a time. And the easiest way to begin is by connecting discipline to something you already enjoy, something that makes you feel good, like listening to music, walking outside, watching videos, or talking with a friend. Because when you combine something enjoyable with something useful, your brain begins to feel good about the process, and it becomes much easier to stay consistent.
For example, if you want to improve your English listening skills, but you find it hard to sit down and study with books every day, you can try listening to English while doing something relaxing or fun, like cooking dinner, cleaning your room, walking in the park, or even lying on your bed with your eyes closed. Because this helps your brain learn in a way that feels gentle and natural. And over time, it teaches you that discipline doesn't always mean sitting at a desk or working hard. It can also mean creating small positive routines that fit into your daily life in a way that feels smooth and enjoyable.
That's such a great point, Julia, and it brings me to another idea that's incredibly helpful for building discipline without stress, and that is the idea of reducing daily decisions. Because the more choices we have to make each day, the more tired our brains become, which leads to what scientists call decision fatigue. And when that happens, it becomes harder and harder to stay focused, to stay disciplined, and to do the things we know are good for us. So one simple way to avoid this is by creating routines that help us save our brain power for the important things, like practicing English or working on our goals.
Yes, and this can be very simple to start with. You don't need to plan every hour of your day, but maybe you can decide to always study English at the same time each morning, or always review vocabulary while eating lunch, or always listen to English podcasts before bed. Because when your brain begins to follow a pattern, it stops asking, should I study now or later? And instead just follows the habit naturally. And this saves you time, saves you energy, and makes discipline feel automatic instead of difficult.
And that brings us to another helpful idea, which is the importance of creating the right environment, because your surroundings have a huge effect on how focused and disciplined you feel. So if your room is messy, your phone is buzzing with messages, your TV is on, and your materials are all over the place, it becomes very hard for your brain to concentrate, even if you have the best intentions. But if you take just 5 or 10 minutes to clean your space, prepare your notebook, turn off distractions, and make your study area feel calm and ready, it becomes so much easier to start, and starting is usually the hardest part.
Yes, absolutely, and once you get started, you often realize that studying isn't as hard as it seemed. It's just the beginning that feels heavy, and once that first step is done, the rest becomes much easier, especially if your environment is helping you instead of hurting you. And that's why I always recommend students to create a study corner or study zone, even if it's just one small part of their room where everything is ready, clean, and quiet, because that space becomes a signal to your brain. Now it's time to grow.
Another technique that many people find useful when building discipline is using a reward system. And this doesn't have to be anything big or expensive. It can be something very small, like enjoying your favorite snack after studying for 20 minutes, watching a short video after finishing a grammar lesson, or calling a friend after completing your vocabulary practice. Because when your brain knows that a positive feeling is waiting after the work, it starts to see discipline not as something painful, but as something that leads to pleasure. And this simple trick can make a huge difference in helping you stay consistent over time.
That's so true. And I think it's important to remind our listeners that discipline is not about being perfect. And it's not about doing everything right every single day. It's about doing your best, showing up, and trying again even after you miss a day, or feel tired, or make a mistake. Because discipline is not about success in one moment. It's about creating a rhythm of effort and progress. And that rhythm is what brings long-term success, especially when it comes to learning a language like English, where practice and patience are more important than talent or speed.
And one last thing I want to say is that the more you practice discipline, the easier it becomes, not because your life becomes perfect, but because you become stronger and smarter about how to manage your time, your energy, and your habits. So even on the days when you feel tired or unmotivated or frustrated, you know that you have systems in place, routines in place, and habits in place that carry you forward, and that is the true gift of discipline. It keeps you going even when motivation disappears.
So if you're listening to this podcast and thinking, I want to be more disciplined, but it feels too hard, just remember that it doesn't have to be hard. It just has to be gentle, consistent, and connected to the life you want to create. And with small steps, smart routines, and a little bit of kindness to yourself, discipline can become your best friend, not your enemy.
All right, my friends, we've had a really great conversation today, and before we end this episode, Julia and I want to take some time to go back, think about what we've talked about, and share some of the most important ideas again. Because when you hear something more than once, it stays in your mind longer, and that's exactly what we want for you. Especially if you're serious about growing your English and building strong habits that last.
Yes, Adam. And we started today's podcast by talking about two very important ideas that many people often mix up or think are the same: motivation and discipline. But as we explained, motivation is that feeling of energy or excitement that usually comes at the beginning of something new, like when you start learning English or go to the gym for the first time, and it feels fun, fresh, and full of possibilities. But motivation is like the weather. It changes quickly, and it doesn't always stay with you, especially when things become difficult or boring.
Exactly, and that's where discipline comes in. Because unlike motivation, discipline doesn't wait for you to feel good or excited, and it doesn't disappear just because you're tired or having a bad day. Instead, discipline is that quiet but strong voice inside you that says, I will do this because it's important, not because I feel like it right now. And we gave some clear examples like waking up early, studying English every day, or going to work even when it's raining outside, because those actions come from discipline, not from emotion.
And remember, motivation can be helpful. It can give you that push to get started. But if you only depend on motivation to keep going, you'll probably stop when life gets hard, when you feel lazy, or when things don't go your way, which is why discipline is so powerful, because it helps you move forward, even slowly, even on the bad days. And that's exactly what leads to real progress and long-term success in anything, including learning English.
Another thing we talked about was how to build discipline, and we explained that it starts with small daily actions that you repeat again and again until they become automatic, like brushing your teeth or tying your shoes. And we also mentioned that it's okay to start with just 5 minutes a day, because what matters more than how much time you spend is the fact that you show up and do the work, even when you don't feel like it, because that's how habits are built, one small step at a time.
We also shared some great tips for how to stay disciplined for a long time, like creating a quiet, distraction-free space for study, giving yourself small rewards when you finish a task, having a support system to check in with, or even writing a journal to keep track of your effort. And most importantly, we reminded you that discipline is not about being perfect. It's about being consistent, and that means doing your best, forgiving yourself when you miss a day, and coming back the next day with a strong heart and clear purpose.
And I hope you remember what we said about being patient with yourself, because success, especially when learning a language, doesn't happen overnight. You won't become fluent in 1 week or even 1 month, but if you keep practicing, keep listening, keep speaking, and keep showing up every day with a little bit of discipline, then over time, your progress will surprise you, and one day, you'll look back and be proud of how far you've come, just because you didn't give up when it was hard.
So, if there's one thing we want you to take away from today's podcast, it's this: don't wait for motivation to do what matters. Build discipline instead, because motivation is like a friend who visits sometimes, but discipline is the friend who walks with you every single day, even when the road is difficult, even when you're tired, and even when you feel like nothing is working. Trust discipline. It is slow, but it is steady. It is quiet, but it is strong. And with it, you can do anything.
We really hope this episode helped you understand the power of discipline and why it is more important than motivation if you want to reach your goals and improve your life, especially when learning English or any other skill. Thank you for spending this time with us today, and remember, we believe in you. You have everything you need inside you. You just need to take one small step, then another, and another. Keep going, keep learning, keep growing.
And don't forget to subscribe to the English Globe if you enjoyed today's podcast, because we have more conversations coming, that will help you become more confident in English, stay motivated, and learn real-life vocabulary and phrases while listening to easy and natural conversations. We're here to walk with you on this journey, every single step of the way.
Thanks again, everyone. Take care, be kind to yourself, and we'll see you in the next episode.
Bye-bye for now, and remember, discipline is your superpower. Use it well.